Founded in 1978 by the late jazz impresario George Wein, the Saratoga Jazz Festival is the fifth longest consecutive running jazz festival in North America. The 48th annual Saratoga Jazz Festival, presented by GE Vernova, will take place at the beautiful Saratoga Performing Arts Center on Saturday, June 28th and Sunday, June 29th. And joining me to talk about the two-day, two-stage event is festival producer Danny Melnick. Danny is also the president of Absolutely Live Entertainment. Great to see you again, Danny.
Thanks so much, Doug.
My pleasure. And Saratoga Performing Arts Center president and trumpeter Christopher Shiley is also here with us. So glad you could join us, Chris.
Thanks so much for having me. My pleasure.
Danny, this lineup is incredible. Features Gary Clark Jr., Gregory Porter, Trombone Shorty, Lettuce, Cassandra Wilson, Corey Wong, Artemis, and many others that we'll talk about. What goes into your mindset when you're putting a lineup like this together?
Well, firstly, the history of Saratoga and the festival itself is so important to us because we've had such an incredibly dedicated fan base for all these years. But at the same time, we're always trying to make sure that the festival is fresh, that we're appealing to a younger, new audience. So it's this great balance between history, legacy, and, making sure we know what we're doing now. And so it's the jigsaw puzzle, as I always say to people, that, the way I look at the festival lineup is that I have this jigsaw puzzle that and all the pieces have to fit into each other nicely and properly so that when it's all done, everything is exactly the way we think it's supposed to be. And Chris and I work very closely together all year round, talking about the artist, trying to figure out what to do. We dance with the agents and the managers about availability and money and routing and all sorts of other issues. So it's quite a massive undertaking, quite frankly, just to book the 22 bands.
So take us maybe like into a conversation with either the people who handle Gary Clark Jr. How did that go? How excited is he to be at the Saratoga Jazz Festival this year?
Well, that was actually magic for us this year because I have been trying to get Gary for years since he really popped onto the scene. And for one reason or another, it just never worked out. They weren't in the Northeast at the end of June. They were opening for larger, blues and rock bands, doing their own touring concerts. There were times when Gary particularly wasn't really interested in doing festivals because he wanted to play longer and do his own, as he became a more of a headliner artist, he was doing his own concerts and playing, these 2.5 hour long shows. But his agent called sometime in, late summer, early fall, and said, we're routing Gary in the Northeast in June, and we actually want to do some different types of markets, some tertiary markets, different looks and whatever. And the way things are lining up, we think he'll be available on your Saturday. And it works perfectly for us. And I said, yes, please, just tell me that the money will be right. And it was. We really made a good financial deal for us and for him. And it really just clicked. Like it was an amazing thing. So when you get those calls from a booking agent who is eager to have their artist play on the festival, respects the festival, understands what our parameters are, and has an artist that really is, eager to do something like this finally after all these years, it's really, I think, an extremely lucky, really, and special thing. And it says a lot about us and who we are as a festival and what our relationships are with these agents and how we've treated the artists over the years and how awesome it is for them to play at SPAC. And then their desire to have their artist on the festival. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Chris, prior to joining SPAC, you worked for the international concert touring company Classical Movements. You also served as director of operations for the Yellow Barn Music Festival and festival director for the Prague Summer Nights Young Artists Music Festival. So this is nothing new to you as you were working with Danny on this. What makes Saratoga Jazz Festival special to you?
Well, I mean, the history of this festival is incredible, and there's an incredible legacy, and as Danny mentioned earlier, an incredibly loyal audience that exists here that's been coming to the festival year after year. It's always special when the festival comes back and we're walking the grounds and we're seeing people who can recount their first time, their second time, their third time, and they have a distinct memory with each time that they've been at the festival. So anytime you have that kind of legacy to look at, that's a really special component to any festival these days. Not a lot of them have that kind of longevity to look back on. I think musically also though it's a festival that really has throughout its history stayed true to trying to put the artists and the music first and really create, Danny's done a brilliant job and it's been such a pleasure to work with him on really trying to create a lineup that doesn't just have, a big headliner, but really is kind of a cohesive lineup top to bottom that kind of works together. As Danny likes to say, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle and how it all fits together. And that jigsaw puzzle applies to both the routing and the financial component and how you can bring the business side of it all together. But it also applies, I think, to the music itself and how each genre and how each style is fitting together and what the sort of flow of the day is. And I think when I look at the history of this festival, it really has been about the artists and the music and that experience top to bottom. You're going to get an incredibly full and rich day of music and jazz when you come to the Saratoga Jazz Festival.
Chris, as a musician yourself, I always love to see when great people who are also musicians, like a Dave Stryker, guitarist Dave Stryker, or like Nicole Zaritis, the singer, two very special people, not just artists. I'm sure that goes a long way because as a musician yourself, you understand that these are the kind of people that will reach out to fans, that they'll become a part of the whole scene, right?
Absolutely. I mean, being a musician, being able to perform for a living is a privilege in a lot of ways. It's a hard job. It's a difficult thing to do, but it is just such an incredible thing to do. And I think working with those artists that at the end of the day feel that excitement and want to bring that to the audience and want to connect with our community. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I think we've got a lineup this year and certainly in previous years as well that really showcases artists that are in it for the right reasons and excited to be doing it day after day.
Danny, you and I talked about this last year, but I'd like you to talk about this again. The two stage aspect of the festival. How does that work and how has that been beneficial to Saratoga?
Yeah, it's so fabulous that we have the second stage there. I mean, we have this incredible historic amphitheater which holds about 5,200 people, and then SPAC has this gorgeous lawn. And in the back of the facility there, for many years, we had this tiny little stage called the gazebo stage, which was literally this sort of octagonal gazebo, which still lives in the back corner there, unused. But years ago, SPAC was able to raise money and build this fabulous new stage, bigger stage, and in better position too. So it's very important to the festival because it allows us to book a really solid lineup of artists that we want to particularly quote unquote introduce to the audience, to the festival audience. It allows us to set up a really fantastic, intimate environment there on that stage and to have the artists have this incredible energy coming from the audience, which is a general admission, situation out there, but we do have hundreds of, you know, um, chairs for them under this big tent. And then we have this, and there's a bit of an open air space in between this large tent and the stage where we have, park benches there and people can bring their own chairs and set up. So it's very loose, very cool, great sound. The artists really can feel the energy from the audience, and the audience really has an amazing opportunity to have an intimate experience with these artists. Some of them have played the festival before. Some of them, obviously are making their festival debut. Some of them are very well known. Some of them aren't so well known, but it gives us a chance to really utilize that space to our advantage and to continue to offer the diverse, musical buffet that we're serving up. So on that stage this year, we have Zydeco, we have salsa, we have straight ahead jazz, we have some trad jazz, we have some progressive music, some singers, some, obviously instrumentalists, and so on and so forth. We have Gary Bartz is coming, a great legend, making his festival debut. So it really, gives us an opportunity to do everything we possibly could do within those the sets that we have, which is only 11. You know, we have six on Saturday and five on Sunday. I wish I had 10 stages like that for 5 days and we could just book hundreds of bands, you know, but unfortunately, you know, we do what we do. But I do have these fantasies over the years of just wishing, you know, we had so much more to offer to the audience because so many artists want to play. I mean, particularly on that stage, you know, we could book hundreds of bands a year and everybody wants to play there. But, you know, it is what it is. So we curate very carefully and try to offer the audience the best thing we can.
What a nice problem to have, Danny. Everybody wants to play at the Saratoga Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
Chris, is there a certain performer or group that has you tickled about this year?
Oh wow. I mean, there's a lot, but I will say, I mean, we talked a little bit about Gary Clark Jr. I'm very excited. As Danny mentioned, he and I have been talking about him for a while. And actually, I'm 99% sure this is his venue debut as well. He was supposed to come, I think, in 2020 with the Black Keys. I believe he was on tour with them. And we all know what happened in 2020. So this is also feels like a bit of a full circle, you know, from a full perspective of the venue as well to finally have him here. So I'm very excited. I think he's going to just be a great way to close on Saturday. Trombone Shorty is always special at the festival. He's always a party, and he's got this great kind of connection to Saratoga. He was attended the Skidmore Jazz Institute at a very young age. We've had a few headliners over the years that have gone to that institute, and we've kept a relationship going with that institute as well, and bringing those young students over to the festival when they arrive. They kind of arrive on the Sunday of the festival and start the institute. So it's always great when you can have an artist that has a connection to the town, headlining and closing the stage. Feels like a real full circle moment as well. You mentioned Nicole Zaritis, fantastic. So excited for her performance. I know I'm missing others. Lettuce is a band that will be making their debut at the festival as well. And I think Danny mentioned, we're always trying to strike this balance of honoring the roots of the festival and really staying true to kind of core jazz, but also finding ways to reach new audiences and bring in artists that have kind of pushed that a little bit. So I think Lettuce really speaks to that. And Michel Camilo for me is like one of the great, pianists. I've listened to his albums over and over and over again. So to hear him live on the stage, this will be my first time hearing him at SPAC. I'm really excited.
As president of SPAC, what has been your biggest challenge so far?
Oh wow. Well, it's been pretty early. It's only been a couple of months since this change, so I think it's balancing. I'm still very involved in the programming, working with Danny on the Jazz Festival. I do all the programming for our New York City Ballet and Philadelphia Orchestra residencies, as well as our year round. So kind of managing and staying on top of the programming and the calendar, while also now really getting more in the weeds, so to speak, on the day-to-day operations. It's been a bit of a balancing act. At the same time, I'm very excited about the opportunity because I think the programming and the operations obviously go very hand in hand, and one really depends on the other in a lot of respects. And so to be able to sort of draw more of a bridge between those components of SPAC and really kind of tighten some of those processes and things, I'm very excited to be a part of and to continue to work towards.
Danny, Chris mentioned 2020. We don't even want to talk about the pandemic, but are we truly back to where we used to be when it comes to festivals and people being able to enjoy themselves and seeing the crowds and seeing the families get together?
Totally. You know, it's been an amazing journey for all of society, but particularly from us on the live, performance side. We were the first industry really to completely shut down and really the last to fully come back because we were, bringing people together. And we did a modified, very small little festival in 21. We did a solid, good festival in 22. Ticket sales, weren't amazing that year, and we were certainly wondering like what's going to be. But we kind of knew that this was like this comeback to SPAC ramp up situation, and our colleagues all over the world were dealing with, similar things in 22. But 23 and 24 were slamming. We had tremendous years. Those 2 years we're doing very well right now, and it is this incredible thing where people, I think, really do want to be together. They want to hear great music. They want to celebrate the good times. They most everyone, feels very comfortable being together and out. Obviously, there are still people, for whatever health reasons and other issues can't do that. And even some people are still masking, at our events, even if we're outdoors, and that's okay. They're protecting themselves. So, that's fine. But yes, the live music industry, the live, entertainment industry has been back in full force now, really since 23. And it's a bit overwhelming for us actually, because the artists are making up for lost revenues during that time. Everybody wants to be on the road as much as possible. It's tremendous competition for not only getting the gigs, but for selling tickets. And so it's really intense for us as presenters and for the artists too, and the booking agents, because it's just like everybody wants to be out, everybody wants to be playing, everybody wants to be touring, everybody wants to make money, and so the fees have gone up, our expenses have gone up, so it's a big challenge, but yeah, we're full force. I mean, and now we have this new sponsor with GE Vernova, which is just incredible, and they just signed a 5-year deal with us, and that's a massive thing for us, to really be able to go forward.
How did that negotiation happen?
Well, Elizabeth Sobel, who is the CEO of SPAC, she ran into a neighbor who introduced her to the CEO of GE Vernova. They had this incredible multi-hour lunch, and they made a deal. And she got out, she called us, and she's like, "We have a 5-year deal." I was like, "What?" Like, when does that happen? But it was just this magical lightning in a bottle moment. We had Freihofer's Baking Company for 27 years, I think. They had gone through a lot of corporate changes and announced to us in February of 24 that the 24 festival, this past festival, would be their last year. And that, so they gave us plenty of notice, which they were required to do. And that gave us a window and an opportunity to put it out there that the 24 festival would be Freihofer's last festival. And we were now looking for support starting in 25. And Elizabeth made this deal, and here we are. And it's just an incredible, amazing thing.
Yeah, Elizabeth joined us last year. I can imagine it must have been a heck of a lunch, right?
Yeah,
It must have worked out really well.
it's
Chris,
great.
I would imagine one of the reasons that GE Vernova, said, yeah, we want to be a part of this, and WBGO also is partnering with the Saratoga Jazz Festival, is this whole community, family type atmosphere. It's not just about the music, it is about being a part of the community and generations of people and families getting together. This is an event. It's not just a festival. It's an event that people look forward to every year, as you mentioned. You want to comment more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. I think investing, I don't want to certainly speak for GE Vernova, but I think investing in this community and kind of giving back to this area was very important to them. And I think time, kind of being a sponsor and a supporter of this festival really kind of spoke to those efforts on their part, and that community is still at the heart of this festival, even though yes, we've changed the lineup slightly and done things to bring in more people to that community. At the heart of what we're doing, I think, is serving both our local community and this community of jazz festival goers who pencil it in every year and have been coming faithfully year after year.
You can check out the lineup once again and everything about the festival at SPAC.org. Danny, before I let you go, you've become a legendary producer in your own right of festivals. George Wayne started this a long time ago. 48 years of a festival is something to be very proud of. What do you think George would have to say to you today as he looks at the lineup?
Well, he started the festival with Herb Chesbrough, who was then the CEO of SPAC in 78. They made a handshake deal in 77 and started it in 78. And I started working for him in 90 and started coming up to the festival in 91. And I've been booking the artist since 99, and then became a partner in 2008. So I've had this extremely long journey through the festival under George's auspices, and then, fortunately, as a partner with SPAC. He, even in his last few years, fully respected and loved what we were doing, knew that we were continuing the work that he had done all through those years to book a really interesting and diverse festival. His whole thing with me, particularly with Saratoga, was that it's not for the festival producers to define the music, that we are not people who have the right or the power to say what jazz is, what music is, what genre this is. He said, our job is to offer the most, diverse and interesting and exciting and viable festival that we possibly can. That they made this decision early on at Saratoga to mix it up and to do different things and to have all of these eclectic and interesting artists on the festival. And so when I started booking it in '99, I really just tried to carry that torch and just to continue that work through all those years because it was working. And then, as Chris and I have been speaking about, there's just this massive evolution of time now where so many artists have passed away, new artists have come up, new audiences have come up, and we're just trying to stay hip and stay fresh and keep things going. And I think that's what George did too, even in his later years. The work that I had done with him in Newport and other places, we just were constantly trying to keep up on everything. And that's what we're doing. So I would hope and believe that he would have been 100 years old coming up this October 3rd. He was born October 3rd, 1925. His centennial year is this year. And yeah, I hope that he would be very proud that his legacy is still alive and well and thriving in Saratoga.
Yeah, it's the Melnick magic that George Wein
Thank
would be very proud of indeed. I just want to mention a few of the other artists before we end this. Keon Harold, Julius Rodriguez, Kenny Garrett. You have people like DJ Logic and Friends featuring Vernon Reid, amazing Vernon Reid, James Hurt, and the list goes on and on. You can find out every one of these artists and more about them at SPAC.org. So this is always an event that everyone seems to look forward to, and it's coming up on June 28th and June 29th, Saturday and Sunday, the Saratoga Jazz Festival. And SPAC's president, Chris Shiley, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Danny, always a pleasure to see you and continued success, and you do it year in year.
you, Doug.